Well, welcome everyone. This is the Dare to Be Great, Dare to Be You podcast. I'm your host, Sean Langwell, and I've got a very special guest, actually my first guest on this podcast when I started it in 2023. Stephanie St. Clair is with us. And if this is your first time tuning in, this show is really about helping to inspire and uplift people. This is not a upfront, in your face, bark at you. This is me inviting people who I care about, I may or may not know, but who I believe have something of value to you as a listener. And what do I mean by that? There's people all across the spectrum that suffer from some kind of doubt, imposter syndrome, and all this. And there's this huge gap between where people are and where they think they should be. And that's what this show is all about. So you don't have to listen to me. The guests that I invite in here are going to give you some very clear and specific tools on how to navigate that, whether you're a man, a woman, a they or she, or it doesn't matter, basically, is what I'm saying. So the whole purpose of this show is to share some honest and vulnerable stories from real people just like you and I who have happened to have done some things that are really great in their lives. And most importantly, that they're helping other people to improve their lives. I'm going to spare the long dissertation on what this whole show is about, but if you are in a position where you want to improve your life, you're going to love my guest today. Stephanie St. Clair is a mom. She's an entrepreneur, a coach specializing in inner child healing for midlife women to reclaim their power. She helps women step into their authentic selves, trust their intuition, master their emotions, and take charge of their thoughts so they can fully savor the life they've built and hold nothing back. Trained in complex trauma recovery, clinical applications of internal family systems, and trauma-informed meditation and breath work, Stephanie uses her training as well as her personal healing journey as an adult child of an alcoholic and narcissist to help women all over the world come home to their own power, creativity, and spirit. Folks, I give you Stephanie St. Clair.
Ah, hi, Sean. I'm so happy. I was just delighted to get a chance to come back here and chat with you. And I was thinking about how there's so many people in the world who are doing healing work, and they come from all different academic pedigrees and all different backgrounds. And I was thinking about the people who I have met in this space who really have impacted me, and you being one of them. And I was thinking about how it's such an honor and an incredible experience when you come across people who have really kind of clawed their way out
Mhm.
of their out of their hole, whether the hole was drinking or drugs or abuse or any of these things that happen. And it's a strange thing, right? Because we all pop up into the lives that we pop up in. And to our knowledge, we haven't necessarily chosen the families that we're going to pop into, or the time, or the place, or the culture, or any of these things,
Some of us wish
right?
we
Maybe, I
changed
mean,
them,
maybe we
right?
wish we could, and maybe we did. Who knows? But the idea that, like, we all kind of pop up, and we kind of just we've got what we've got, right? We've got the families we've
Mhm.
got all these things. And then life takes off when we end up having all of these experiences. And some of them are positive, lots of them are negative, some of them are really, really negative, depending on what those conditions are. And yet we all have within us that that's something, whether it's like a divine spark or
Mhm.
just that soul or whatever, that even while things are hard and horrible. And again, that word could take that can go pretty far on the spectrum of how horrible can be. But that we we keep we keep getting to the point where we're like, okay, this is hard, but I'm going to keep going, and I'm going to keep going. And there's something that keeps us going. And it might be, another person, or it might be somebody's book that we read, or and it's always so amazing to me that if we are open and we still have any, even just the sliver of hope that things can be better in our lives, that we can have more joy, that we can have more freedom, we can have more creativity, that things don't have to be the way that they are, that we, synchronistically come across a person who has something to give us, to take for the next step of our journey. Or again, it could be a book that you come across, or just something you hear on a podcast or whatever, that, like, if you're open to it, the world ends up coming in and bringing you these little treasures, these little helpers, these little tools to go through the thing. And I think that the people, to circle back to this idea of, like, kind of clawing our way out, the people who I've gotten the most of those tools for my tool bag along the way were always people who kind of had to, again, kind of claw their way out of the darkness. And they
Mhm.
didn't necessarily have, maybe they didn't go to school to become a therapist or, or a doctor or any of these things. Some of them maybe, but most of them really just kind of followed that little calling in their heart and just never gave up. And along the way, they found these incredible things that have been so just absolutely monumental to my journey. And so I just want to take a second and like turn that around on you, because you're definitely one of those people who I feel that way about and who inspires me in that way. And I see all the work you've done and all the books you've written. And we were talking a little bit earlier about, your morning meditation, morning motivation book that I can't wait to get my hands on and look at. But I'm just kind of curious about with you, is there, if you were going to say like maybe one teacher or one person who's maybe popped into your life in your journey, who you're like, oh my gosh, they gave me
Yeah,
something major.
it's tough. I mean, the first person that immediately comes to mind is my mother, who I
Mm,
did a podcast with her, and she was so instrumental because, and here's why. Some people have a fucked up relationship with their parents, some people don't. It is what it is, and that's what you already alluded to, is we get to live with the bag of tools that we have and we've acquired along this way. But one thing that I always felt in my heart of hearts, my dad was a good man. He
mm,
ended up leaving when I was 12, and my mom had a lot of bitterness around that. But even before my dad left, my mom was always there to kind of support and encourage me, including my father,
mm,
to believe that I could do what I wanted to do
yeah,
within reasons, and that encouragement. And I had that from a very, very early age, Stephanie, and part of it got me into trouble. I became really good at a lot of different things, and I became cocky and arrogant. And I think, you talked about in the intro here about narcissism and stuff like that. But in terms of influence, she taught me the basic fundamentals of being a good person. The
mm,
second person that has recently passed away last year, or actually the year before last, was my sponsor in recovery, and
yeah,
by the name of Bobby B. He taught me how to become a man. I got sober at a very young age, and he, more than anybody else besides my mom, gave me the tools and the framework to grow into my own skin, if that makes sense.
totally.
And the rails and creating these patterns and changing the patterns, and also recognizing screwed up behavior that I had when I stopped drinking that was still not healthy, and direct me towards therapy. And
Hmm.
those those steps along the way really helped me fine tune who I am today. I think, my mom's living with me now, so I see her every single day, and we have some good conversations. We also butt heads because that's what
Mm.
kids do with their parents,
Right.
especially when they're living under
At
your
any
roof.
age, yeah.
But I would say those two. The only other one in terms of the writing is my English teacher, Cap Lavin, and who I've become really good friends with his son, who's an NCAA coach and just a dynamite human being. Um, to your point, if we're open to receive what this wonderful world has, and we're not just looking in the mirror, looking at what's in front of us, that I think is some of the work that I believe you're doing, is getting people out of those patterns and
Mm,
the old beliefs to move into that's the past. It's going to stick with you, but how do we move forward from the gunk that we carry with us? And it's not an easy task to be
no.
open when the world's coming at us and throwing pot shots at us, or we're throwing pot shots at ourselves, is not an easy thing. It becomes a discipline. And that's really why I wanted
Hmm.
to have you on the show, because you've gotten you've worked with a lot of people, and you've
Yeah.
got success, and
Mm,
you have finite language and tools, and an upcoming workshop that can help women in particular. You focus primarily on women navigate through healing some of those old wounds. And on my side, I've had to heal a ton of wounds. I still do.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, influence is influence. You influence me even with your posts, whether you're lifting weights in the gym or you're just putting a straight up barking at somebody, this is what you need to do type of stuff. Love it. So
Yeah.
I'm playing ping pong with you. It's coming back to you, but my mom, my sponsor, and my
Yeah.
English teacher.
Yeah, no, I love that. Thanks. Yeah, cycle breakers, cycle breakers with our parents. And I think that that's one of the things that a lot of women come to me wanting to do is they're recognizing that they want something more for their future than necessarily they saw their mother have, or there's somebody, whether it's their mother, the grandma, whoever. And they recognize that it's midlife is such a potent time because it really is that it's when you get that message. I think Brene Brown said something about it. It's like when like life puts their hands on your shoulders and shakes you and is like, you got to get if you're going to do anything, it's now. Like you got to stop looking around. It's go time, right? It's go time. You can't be faking it anymore. And I think that, so many of the women come to me because they feel that on a very real level. And they know
Mhm.
that they want to change these behaviors that aren't serving them anymore, but they don't know where to start. They don't, they just, they're really just at this place of help, but I don't know what to do with this need for help. I just know that change needs to happen. And what I really love to do is to first and foremost is to, celebrate that they're even having the balls to do that, because
Well, yeah.
it's so hard, especially at this point in life. Like you've built anyone who's made it to the midlife, you've built a life for 40 plus years. You have relationships, you have a job, you have things that are in place, and there's a sense that who you have been thus far has been the person that's made it possible for you to have the life that you have at this moment. And so the idea that you're going to change, if you don't, first of all, you don't know how. Second of all, you don't
Hmm.
really know what you're going to change into. You just know that something has to change. But there's a really big fear that if you change, well, what is that going to mean for this life
Well,
that
and
I
that's
built? You
let's
know?
pause there for a sec because I want to give you an opportunity to speak to some women out there who are in midlife, who are on this space, that not from a sales perspective, folks, if you're
Hmm.
considering this is not a sales pitch. We're going to give you an opportunity to sign up, and she's got one spot left for this upcoming workshop. And even so, with the 6 to 8 week program that it is, it's still an incredible value. But we hold on to what's comfortable.
Yeah.
And even if it's painful, and what I've learned, and you and I talked about this a year and a half or so ago, is when it sometimes takes an outside impetus or some life situational change to wake us up. And it may be a conversation, it may be a podcast, it may be this episode that we're recording right now that's going to be out super quick, but we don't know what that is. And we have an opportunity for you to just do a brief role play, if you will, without putting you, well, I am putting you on the spot, but say you have a new prospective client who is interested but not totally sure. How would you talk to somebody like that if they make up one scenario of something that's going on with them that they're struggling with that you might want to help guide them to a solution, whether it's with you or somebody else?
Sure. The first thing that comes to mind is around people pleasing, is around, and this is something that is just so common. I have these women who come to me who they're badasses. They at work, they get things done. They're decisive. They have no problem, saying what they need to say, correcting a colleague, or whatever. They are in that energy just naturally. But
Hmm.
then they have a family member who they have to see at multiple family events, who is toxic and gross feeling for them to be around, who puts them down, who makes them feel really like a scolded little child. And yet they keep making themselves available to this person. They keep just letting that person into their space, letting that person talk at them, letting them suck, literally like a vampire, like suck the light out of them over and
Mm.
over and over again. And they can't figure out why they still let that happen, and they don't know what to do to change that. And the work that I do in a situation like that is we really kind of start to explore like what is the story that we've got
Mhm.
around that particular person, but what is the story that we have around the value of our own time? What is the story that we have around the value of our own energy? What is it that, and let's actually allow ourselves to explore, like, what do we think really would be the worst case scenario that would happen if we're like,
Mm.
in some way, shape, or form, not allowing ourselves to get cornered by this energy vampire anymore, right? And
I
so,
love that phrase, energy vampires.
oh, we all know them. We all
Soul-sucking family members.
soul-sucking family members. And allowing, because I think that one of the things that's such a knee-jerk reaction for us when we decide we see ourselves, for example, as a people pleaser and we want to change is we just willpower it. We just go, well, I'm just going to
Mhm.
stop doing that. And what we do not realize until we do this work, particularly inner child healing and reparenting work, we don't realize that the part of us that is allowing us to get cornered by this energy vampire is a very real part of us. It is a valid part of us, and that part of us has a very legitimate reason for why they allow you to get cornered. And until we go and stop pushing back against that part and trying to, willpower it away, until we actually are compassionate enough to like ask that part, what is it that you're afraid of? What is it you need? Like start to build this relationship with this part of ourselves that is behind this behavior. Once that part can be understood and heard and connected with and served and loved, which is totally feasible to do, it's amazing how quickly there's no longer a need to allow yourself to get cornered anymore. So
Well,
yeah, go
what
ahead.
I hear, what I hear you talking about though is, I mean, I don't want to get too spiritual here, but I know you've got a spiritual background, as do I, but this is a
Yeah.
lot of what is, I don't know that much about it, but in terms of Buddhism and even Taoism, of learning the art of detachment, because our
Yeah.
identity from our past, that becomes who we are. And the reflection that you just described, we can be a badass woman out in the workplace and running big teams and organizations, but when you come back into this other spot, there's, for lack of a better, it's healing that inner child because there's
Mhm.
other wounds there, and until you identify and come to grips with detaching from this behavior, but it's not just detachment, Stephanie, it's also embracing this
Yes.
inner child,
Yep.
this person that wants to be loved and accepted and feel belonging. And oftentimes, in my own experience too, that comes from some kind of a separation anxiety. When my dad split, I was overcompensating to do everything in
Mhm.
my life to make
Yeah.
up for what I thought he should be. He was a
Yeah.
firefighter. He was saving people's lives, for crying out loud. But because he took off and left me and my mom and my two younger brothers, I copped a resentment. And that's part of the reason why I ended up becoming an alcoholic, is I was drinking at him. And
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
carried that baggage. Really, I didn't totally learn how to forgive him 100% until last summer.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about
Decades.
decades,
Yes.
decades of pain.
Yes.
So
Yes.
for those who are out there listening, I'm a guy, so obviously I haven't gone through your programs, but how do you make that safe for somebody who is in a vulnerable spot, but you're talking about some deep stuff that isn't necessarily in a therapy sense, but
Mhm.
it can be equally, if not even greater, healing from a cathartic standpoint when you're able
Yeah.
to grasp and identify and accept that part of you.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's the thing that a lot of people misunderstand about inner child healing, and because it's kind of got a kind of a pop cultural, it's got some commodity now. I mean, people kind of know that term and
Sure.
they hear it and they maybe understand it or think they understand it. But what a lot of people misunderstand about inner child healing is that the part where you're actually in connection with these wounded, scared parts, the parts that allow us to get cornered by the energy vampire, or allow us to start drinking to cover up the hurt. It Before that can happen, we actually have to have a more of a relationship with what is often called the inner loving parent. But you could also call it the inner wise adult, or the authentic self, or the higher self, or the soul. Like there's any number of labels that you can get it, but all of us have at, at some moment in our life, we have had, whether we consciously did it or it just kind of happened, We have connected with something within us that is truly compassionate, that is
Mhm.
loving, that is tender, that is driven to connect. Would call it, a spiritual aspect myself, but it's something that is within us that is not us, if that makes sense.
Exactly.
It's
No,
in us, but it's
yeah,
not our personality and it's not our ego, but it's something that is so powerful that when we're in that, when we're embodying that, there's it is a true mind body knowing you're in it. And again, it might last for a second and you're like, "Oh, what was that?" Or it's something that we can get into, but that part is the part of us that, again, we'll call it the inner loving parent. That part of us is the part that we strengthen first, that we get to know first, that we start to build more scaffolding around first, because ultimately these little wounded parts that are playing out these old self-sabotaging dysfunctional behaviors, they're basically waiting for an adult to come to them and say, "You're good. You don't have to do this anymore. I've got this. You don't have to take this job anymore." Because that's ultimately what so many of us who struggle and suffer with this stuff, that's what we've had to do. We didn't have, and it's not a blaming or shaming of our parents. Everybody was doing the best that they could, but we did not have the adults around us in those formative years to see us, to truly see us,
mhm,
to truly hear us, to be able to get down to our level and to make us, for those moments, like the most important person in the whole wide world. And understandably so. It's tough. None of us nail it perfectly, right? But those parts of us that had those needs so young, if those needs were perpetually not met, those parts get frozen within us. And
sure.
so that's really what inner child healing and reparenting work is about, emphasis on the reparenting work, because we have to start to become the parent now that we needed then. And
But
so, yeah,
in that process, there's a couple things that, I'm just going to draw upon my almost 4 decades of recovery experience because this is
yeah,
recovering and healing,
totally recovery. Yep.
is tapping into a level to A, be willing to start to parent yourself. Before
Mhm.
you can get there, you kind of have to understand and identify that this is what's going on, which
Yeah,
is, I'm sure, part of your program is helping people get down to those layers where you can recognize it. Then there's that acceptance. But beyond the acceptance is giving the permission to ourselves that it's okay, to feel those feelings, because that's where a lot of the challenge comes, is that you want to stuff it because you
Mhm.
shouldn't be acting this way, that in this relationship, I'm supposed to act this role because that's what's expected, which becomes
Right.
pleasing behavior, as you talked about. But giving ourselves permission to say no,
Yeah. Yeah. To
and
feel it
giving ourselves
enough.
permission to say yes.
Yes, yes. Oh, and there's so much of that, right? So much yes to joy, yes to fun, yes to play, yes to all these things that we have
Mhm.
shut down that are so, so necessary, and I think that that's you really speak to one of the things that has to be overcome in the healing work to really have some transformation, is that one, it's not a thinking thing.
Mhm.
I mean, you're definitely learning, and so much of the work that I do is also about just this education about some of the basics of kind of how we are formed. So a lot of it is that we all typically, unless we go to get a psychology degree or something of that level, most of us are walking around not having much understanding of how our personality is developed, how our ego is developed, how our own wiring works. So
Mhm.
a lot of the time is just learning some what I kind of call like humaning 101 stuff. Just
Sure.
having some of that awareness is helpful, but it's so much more than just an intellectual pursuit. It is about that giving yourself permission. It is about allowing yourself to feel the things. And that's one of the, I think, what's so wonderful about and essential about healing is that it really isn't anything that you can do on your own. You must have community. You must have someone who is outside of yourself. At some point, there's a lot of work that we can do and a lot of healing that we can do on our own. But eventually, we do have to be able to be in connection. And there's that saying about in recovery, it's like the opposite of drinking or addiction. Rather, the opposite of addiction isn't sobriety. The opposite of addiction is connection.
Mhm.
And that is huge. And I think that one of the powerful things about how I set up my program and how the space is created is that the space is created in that there is this in the week. The program itself is a combination of training modules that people watch at home and then weekly group coaching calls where we go over the previous week's work. We look at how that applies to what the person is currently going through and really apply it in that hands-on way with a lot of learning, but a lot of experiential stuff, getting the body
Okay.
involved. But it is about making this space to be able to say, you know what, this actually is the space where you get to express out loud that you didn't like that, that you didn't want to do that, or that you wanted to do that, where you get to be heard. And just like in the rooms, there's something that's so powerful about just being able to share and have it be heard and not have somebody, talking over you or shutting you down or or trying to fix you. And I think that that's the thing, is that my program is so powerful and the work that I do, humbly is so effective, is that I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm here to ask you the questions and give you the tools so that you come to your own truth, because the reality is that we all have within us already everything that we need, but it's just gotten so covered up with all of the old, fear-based behaviors and all of the old survival stuff, that we've just kind of gotten disconnected to it. But we all can get reconnected with the right support, with the right information, and with the right exercises. So it's
Well, and part of
possible.
that connection process that's so successful in 12-step recovery work is also the sharing, the symbiosis that happens in the synchronicity of a shared problem, but also shared solution. And
Hmm.
what the group dynamic does in that is there's a common thread of both, problem, put in air quotes, problem and solution. But by vocalizing and verbalizing and identifying and talking about it and whatever verb you want to put in there, it's the action that is involved. Because if it's just
Yes.
internally, then we are absorbing it. Then we stay in the itty bitty shitty committee between our ears, the
Yeah,
thinking
totally,
zone. And
totally.
that does not solve anything. All it
Yes,
does is perpetuate this negative downward spiral where we feel less than, not adequate. We second guess all the mental, I call it mental
yeah,
masturbation. It's mental horse shit, basically.
totally, totally.
And to get out of that is requires talking about it, and then the action that comes through the workshops, the weekly assignments that you're talking about. I'm
Mm,
going to segue here because we talked about it before we started recording, but that was part of the reason why I wrote Morning Motivation, and
mm,
the video that's out there. This is a book that I just came out with last week. This is the subtitle is Practical Wisdom to Break Free from Self-Doubt and Start Living an Extraordinary Life. So
mm,
and Stephanie has graciously agreed to actually share this and make a recommendation. But what this is just a very simple workbook and journal that you may do in your workshops. But I didn't want this to be sequential. I didn't want it to feel like another homework assignment.
yeah,
I can't
textbooks.
do it.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
behind. Oh my
yes,
God, I'm
yes,
failing. So
yes.
for those who happen to be watching this video, and I'll put it out on YouTube because this is really important work. One of the things that Stephanie talked about here was getting down to the core of what's going on. And I just flipped this open. I haven't written in here yet, but this one is finding our why.
Mm,
He who has a why to live for can bear almost anyhow. That
yeah,
quote's from Friedrich Nietzsche.
yeah,
And then I got a paragraph, a full page here of a whole bunch of stuff on what that process is. And in one bold line that you already talked about, and that's serendipitous that I even opened this. It's one thing that's a takeaway. Own your life.
yes, yes,
So
yes.
that's enough on this, but I'm gonna bring it back to you so you can talk a little bit more about what people can expect at your upcoming workshop and
Hmm.
do a shameless self-promotion plug because
Oh,
there's only one spot that's going down great.
yeah, so it's going fast. Grab it now. Yeah, own your life. I love that. I love that so much. And I can, because before I get into, sharing a little thing, that's really what this program is about. The breakthrough
Is it
is
really?
about that.
I
Yeah.
just pulled that out of my ass.
You nailed it. Nailed it. Yeah, no, I mean, that is what the breakthrough, and that's the name of the program, is the Breakthrough Inner Child Healing for the Midlife Woman. And it is about owning your life. And it's mind-blowing. When it's mind-blowing to really wrap your head around the idea. Well, that doesn't work, does it? Mind-blowing, head rubbing, whatever. You know what I'm
That's all
saying?
right. I get
That's
it.
all right. You got it. That that this that this is your life, and that we all get to create it the way that we want. And that is such a rebellious, defiant, and very scary thing at the beginning of any kind of healing work we do, is that unless we can do that, we will go to our grave not having really truly lived. We have just been going through the motions. We've just been basically replicating all of the stuff that we got from our parents and their parents and their parents and their parents and their parents, and we're just continuing it on. And so for the woman
Well, actually,
who,
let me
yeah,
interrupt just briefly
yeah,
because
go
what you
ahead.
just touched on, and you're probably going to address this, but what you're talking about is what I write about a lot is this
Mm.
gap, and the gap is a belief gap.
Oh, okay. Tell
The
me
gap
more.
is the belief gap. So you can understand it intellectually, but until you actually get in there and start doing the work and practicing and being willing to fail, once you start to get some progress, that's where the belief and the confidence comes that, oh,
Yeah.
this is not a, a dire situation that's hopeless, that there is hope on the other side of that.
Yes.
That's why I wanted you on the show. I mean, that just
Yes.
happened to be serendipitous about owning your life,
Yes.
but
Experience,
you
strength,
can't
and
own
hope.
your
Yep.
life until you actually believe that you can have some
Yes.
input to
Yes.
change your life.
Yes.
Without that
Yes.
belief, nothing ever is going to change, folks.
That's
I
right.
don't even
That's
know what your
exactly
program is,
right.
but
That's
without any
exactly
belief,
right.
it ain't gonna freaking change.
That's right. And that's where um I think one of the places where you can really help yourself is like, it takes a little, it not even a little bit, like, you got to have some defiance. Like, there's got to be if you can tap into that part of you that's just like, fuck this, I am not going to my grave like this. Like, even if it's just a little bit, like, if you can tap into it, and I think about like the inner teen part of you, there's a part in all of us that's a little defiant and wants to, like,
Well, yeah.
give it them, right? If that energy, that is what can help you really break through. And so, yeah, so with the breakthrough program, the way it works is it's an 8-week hybrid course. So that means that each week you will receive a new module of videos, so just bite-size, super useful, super informative, bite-sized videos that you are listen to and watch, as well as coordinating exercises, in addition to other supplemental additional readings, different articles, other podcasts, things that support the material of the course as it moves
Okay.
through. And then each week there is a group coaching call, and that group coaching call lasts as long as it needs to. It might be an hour, might be 2 hours. It's the whole point is that every single week you get to come to that call, having gone through the modules, thinking about, what did you learn? Where did you get challenged? What's coming up for you? And being able to leave each and every of one of those 8 calls with a breakthrough around what you're going through in that moment. And the
So
goal, oh
everybody
yeah,
has an opportunity to be heard, basically.
yes, to be heard and to be coached and to be supported. And in addition to that, after the 8 weeks is over, there's also part of the program is that there's a private WhatsApp channel. And once you're in the program, the 8 weeks will end. You have all the trainings, you have all the recordings, you have everything for forever. But you get to stay in that community. So you're going to be
Mm,
able to continue to be supported, ask for, ideas, get a little bit of coaching, get constant inspiration, and again, community, which is such a huge part of it. So that is kind of for forever. So
okay.
that's wonderful. So the woman who would be interested in this program is someone, again, who's in midlife. And I don't really know what's called. They're usually like 35 plus, 40 plus, but a woman in midlife who has reached the point in herself where she recognizes that she's getting in her own way, that the things that she thinks, the way that she's showing up in her life is incongruent with what's really calling on her soul, but she doesn't know really where to start to change. She's afraid to change because she doesn't want to blow up the life she's had, but she also
Mm,
recognizes that if she continues on the path that she's on and does not make a change, that something inside her will die. quite
Yeah.
frankly.
And
That's
that's
really what it
powerful.
is.
And
Yeah.
the word die is what's it's a slow death. It's painful.
Yeah, it is a slow death. And the inner child healing part of that is that bringing it back to what I was touching on earlier is that we have, I love this analogy, or this metaphor is like, there's a certain point where the caterpillar knows that it's time. And
Mhm.
it up until that point, it's been crawling around and it has to, deal with the threats of being eaten and it has to do all the caterpillar things. But at some point, something inside that caterpillar knows that it's time to shift and time to change. And that's when, the chrysalis happens. And the thing is that if that if that change does not happen, that caterpillar dies. It never gets to move into its next phase of life. It never gets to be what is actually already inside it to be. And that's the
Mhm.
other crazy thing is that, like, within that caterpillar, before it even becomes the chrysalis out of which the butterfly comes, within that caterpillar is everything that it needs to do all that and to be all
So
that.
powerful.
And that's all of us. Like, we all, my thought on life for a snippet of it is that we all have a season of our life where we're just meant to survive. We're just supposed to be that
Hmm.
caterpillar who's just kind of crawling around and it stays on the ground and it's limited, right? It's a
Hmm.
limited existence. But the time does come where we get that call to shift. And if we don't shift, we do die. But if we do shift, all of a sudden we go through a dark period, things get gnarly, we dissolve, but we're always there, and everything that we need for the next chapter of our life is there waiting for us to embody. And then we're not just having to crawl on the floor, we can fly. We have that's an entirely new existence, but that energy has always been inside us from the very beginning. And that's what my work is about.
It's powerful. And that the metaphor, I mean, that's one of the things. This is a beauty of why I do this show, folks, is because if I'm not having these conversations with other people I may not cross paths with, I don't get the value of this. But one simple metaphor that is so obvious is basically if we don't shift, we die. The
Mm.
caterpillar. I mean, that's powerful, Stephanie. And you've got a great opportunity here. How many slots? You have one slot left at the
I have
discount rate.
one, so yeah, so just at full transparency. So again, this 8-week program, all of this coaching, lifelong connection through this WhatsApp channel and coaching through all that. It's 1997, but I opened up the first 5 spots for $597, which
Oh my
is
God.
70% off, which is super crazy. But I am so passionate about this work, and I come across so many women who are so hungry to do this work, but they're scared
Hmm.
to do it. They're scared about investing in themselves. They're scared about investing their resources. And to me, it's about just getting the work out there. And so I have one spot left at that $597 rate. It is not going to be added to. That's only one. And the program, the first module will be released on Friday, April 11th. And then the first coaching call is on the week of April 14th. So that following week.
So this
So
is coming up in the next 2 weeks, folks.
yeah,
I'm not going to edit this podcast because I told Stephanie at the beginning, we're just going to cut it and get it out there and
love it.
push it out. So, how do people find you
Yeah.
and sign up for the course?
Yes. So they can go to vantagelifedesign.com, and they can actually, the actual link, if they want to go right to that page where they get to see that pricing and everything else, is if they go to vantagelifedesign.com, and it's /first five. So
Okay.
they can look at that, and I'll send you out the link directly as well. But vantagelifedesign.com, the breakthrough. And if they go to vantagelifedesign.com /first five, it'll come right up, and they can get all the information about the program, learn a little bit more about me, get some testimonials from some of my clients, and then get themselves in that one spot before it is gone.
And outside of this, you do other work as well, so they can
Hmm.
find other information about you on
Yeah.
vantagelife.com, correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. And I also do work with private clients. So I work with private clients, people who want to have a little bit of just kind of having things be the work being more around their particular whatever they're, a lot of times it's maybe they're going through a divorce or they're facing a job transition, something that's a big transition in life, and they want support in navigating that.
Okay.
That is something that I also do. So that's also available, and that can all be learned about on vantagelifedesign.com.
God, this has been a treat. I'm so glad you're
Yes.
available and that we're
Thanks for
connected.
asking.
Seriously. And
Always a good time. Always great conversations.
it's just dynamite, folks. This has been Dare to Be Great, Dare to Be You. I'm the host, Sean Langwell. You can find me at seanlangwell.com. I've got a handful of books, five books out on Amazon. The latest
Amazing.
one, Motivation, will be in Copperfield as soon as it gets done being approved. Actually, we have bookstores everywhere. So
Yeah.
for those who don't want to support Amazon, I get it. I don't care, but it's the lifeblood of independent authors like us. And
Hmm.
if you really want it and you want a signed copy and you want to spend some extra money to cover my mailing costs, I will send you a signed copy. You just email me at seanlangwellwriter.com, seanlangwellwriter@gmail.com. But for
Awesome.
now, this has been a delight as always.
Yeah, always.
Come
Love
back
it.
and do
Thanks so
this at least
much.
once a year.
Oh,
And
I love it.
God, I love you. I love what you're doing. And let's get
Same.
this bad boy out there so you can fill that last spot.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Sean. I
All
appreciate
right.
it so much.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.